Hi folks, Roland Martin here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. You know, I get a lot of requests and a lot of comments of people wanting to know where to catch a big monster bass. Now, I'm kind of a real expert at fishing South Florida. I fish all the Everglades areas, I fish the Stick Marsh areas, I fish the Okeechobee areas, I fish Kissimmee, I fish the center of the bass capital of the world. And I know a little bit about how to catch an 8-pound bass, and that seems to be the going thing. How can you catch an 8-pound bass? Well, if you watch many of my videos, you'll see that I post quite a few 8-pound bass. I don't catch them every trip, but I try to catch them every trip. That's my goal. Whenever I go fishing here in South Florida, each and every cast that I make, I'm thinking 8-pound bass. Okay, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to explain the 2 or 3 great lures to use, and I'm going to explain 2 or 3 great areas to fish. So whether you fish in Connecticut or California, you know, you can come on down and maybe emulate these same kind of conditions in your lake. You might not catch an 8-pound bass, but you can certainly catch a big bass. But if you can, come on down to South Florida. I'm going to give you some rock solid information of where and how to catch some fish. Okay, let's get started. Okay, let's start off first with a topwater lure. And this sounds crazy, but it's warm weather now. It's 80-degree temperatures. And you might say, well, what's a topwater lure? What kind of a big deal is that? Here's a devil's horse. Devil's horse is really a good topwater lure for big fish in the summertime. Anytime the water temperature is over 80 degrees, like it is right now, I can take this topwater, like a devil's horse, and it's a target lure. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw to a target. I don't know, maybe I'll just come out here. And those targets up here, see underneath those trees, that rock? I'm just going to throw the devil horse right to that rock, okay? And let it sit there, let it sit there, let it sit there until the ripples die away, and just barely twitch it along. Okay, that's the kind of retrieve that I'm doing. I'm fishing an ambush point. I'm fishing these lily pads, for example. This little patch of lilies, I'll throw right by it, like there. Okay, let the ripples die away, let the ripples die away, let the ripples die away. Just little bitty twitches, little bitty twitches. Okay, now I'm using a 20-pound test line on a big favorite rod and reel. It's a good complement for a big topwater bite. Now that's one good way of starting early in the morning, late in the afternoon. A topwater bite on a devil's horse is a great lure. Okay, let's go to this other combination right here, and that's the Whopper Plopper. Now, the nice thing about the Whopper Plopper, here in South Florida, there's a lot of hydrilla flats. There's a lot of big shallow water areas. And I can take this Whopper Plopper and I can throw it way across the canal, all the way to the other side, and just come right across the thing. And I'm covering a lot of water with that thing. And look at that, I'm just cast after cast after cast. It's kind of like a buzz bait. And you're talking about big fish, I'm talking about big 7 and 8, 9, and even 10-pound bass are biting this topwater plug. Again, I want calm water. Again, I want warm water. Again, I want clear water. And most importantly, I want kind of an overcast condition. It's sunny right now, and it's maybe not the best Whopper Plopper time. But nevertheless, now Lake Okeechobee and some of the headwaters areas, there's a lot of real heavy lily pads. There's a lot of real heavy brush and cover. And that frog, the Spro weedless frog, is the ticket. Now, here's the deal. I'm running that on a 65-pound braid. It's a whole different ball game now. Talking about a frog and big fish. I got a great big heavy-duty Pro Series handle. I can stick in my stomach, a 65-pound test line, and I'm going to throw it in the lily pads, like those lily pads right there. I'm going to throw it right in the middle of them. It doesn't get hung up. Just pop it along, slow and easy. Just kind of walk along. Just pop it right through the... Now, this is not a very representative place. This is my backyard. But I'm telling you, if I were at Okeechobee, or if I were at the Headwaters Pond, or if I were at the Stick Marsh, I'd be throwing in the thickest eelgrass I could find. I'd be throwing in the thickest hydrilla I could find. I could be throwing in patches of scattered reeds and all sorts of heavy cover. Again, I'm ready to set the hook hard. I'm ready to horse them out of that stuff. I'm coming right through the lily pads right there. That's the secret of having a weedless topwater. You have to have here in South Florida, there's so many weeds. The devil horse and the Whopper Ploppers are great for open water, but you have to have a weedless lure, like that Spro popping frog. And by the way, I know you've seen me do videos with like Gary Milicevic. He's one of the champion fishermen in Lake Okeechobee. He catches a lot of 25 and even 30, even 35-pound stringers of 5 fish on this Spro frog, the black with the little red face on it. It's just an amazing thing. He uses 50-pound braid. I'm using 65, and a fairly long rod, about 7-foot rod. And he's throwing a little isolated clumps of grass back all around the north shore of Lake Okeechobee. Anyway, that is paramount to him. Now, at the same time, here's the other deal about catching big fish. A lot of times a big bass, whatever you throw, whatever topwater you're throwing, a lot of times a big bass will swirl at the lure. You'll see a great big boil underneath it. So here's the deal. You have to have a backup. You have to have a backup plan. The backup plan is a real lightweight 5-inch Senko. And this is, I'm throwing it on braid here because I was just down in Okeechobee and there was a lot of heavy reeds and stuff. That's 50-pound braid. That's a 1/16 of an ounce little screw-in weight, 4-aught hook, small little Senko. So what I have the Senko when I'm throwing the boat. See, I have the Senko in the rod like this. I have the Senko rod just laying right in the front, and I'm throwing my topwater, and the Senko rod's right there. When I get that strike out there and I see the boil, maybe I'm throwing this frog. Okay, here's a good example. I'd throw the frog out there, and all of a sudden I'd be twitching along with the frog. Oh, I see a big boil underneath it. Oh, big boil. Sometimes I'll just drop the rod right there, leave the frog sitting in the water, pick up the Senko and throw it right to the frog. Bam, instant bass. Hey, that's a good way to catch them. You know, the backup plan is really, really strong. When they don't bite it and they just swirl at it, throw the Senko. Okay, that's topwater. Okay, now there's a lot more fish to be caught other than topwater. Let me just show you the lure that I think is probably the #1 lure to use for really big fish. And you see me do a lot of videos in the last 2 years on this. This is the Yamamoto 4.5-inch swimming minnow. It's 4.5 inches long, big deal. And I'm throwing on a big 7/aught weedless hook with a little bit of 1/8 of an ounce weight. Again, I'm using heavy braid. That happens to be 65-pound test line. Now, I'm throwing it in heavy hydrilla. I'm throwing it in heavy stuff. Now, you can reel it real fast on top, and some people take these swim baits and just run them on top like that, okay? And okay, that's fine, but you'll catch small fish. If you want to catch a big fish on this swim bait, look at this. I'll come out here a little bit farther. If you want to catch a big swim bait fish, what you'll do is you'll throw out there and you'll let it sink down and slowly reel it. Get your rod in the strike position and slowly reel it. And watch that lure as it comes in the water. Watch that lure come in. It's just so pretty. Watch that tail action. It's coming through it's pretty weedless. It's coming through the lilies right now. It's coming through the weeds. Look at that tail action. Isn't that beautiful? That's just beautiful as can be. So that's what happens. It comes right through all the weeds. It comes right through all the stuff, and you can see it swimming along just as pretty. That is such a gorgeous lure. It has such great action. They really hit this thing. Now, it's kind of like a worm. Here, when you throw this swim bait, and I use other swim baits as well. I mean, I use the Kitech series. I use the Gambler series. I use everything else. But my favorite, nevertheless, is this 4.5 by Yamamoto. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw it out there in those lilies, for example. I'm going to stick the rod right here, and I'm kind of in a strike position. I'm going to reel it along slow and easy. I'm reeling it right through the lilies, and it's pretty weedless. I'm slowly reeling it along. It's down about a foot or so, maybe even deeper. I can go slower, but it's just kind of coming along. When I get that strike, it's a worm. I go forward, wham, all pretty quick. And I really set the hook. I set the hook because I have the rod butt right here in my side, and I can really concentrate on a good hook set. And this is the big Pro Series rod, my favorite, and it's a big heavy duty. It's actually a flipping stick. It's a 7.5-foot heavy action. Boy, you can really lay it to them with this rod reel. So that's a good combination. If you notice, I'm a power fisherman. All the lures that I'm showing you today are not finesse lures. These are heavy duty stuff. I got heavy duty rods, heavy duty braid. I'm trying to catch an 8-pound bass. Okay, let's talk about some other lures, okay? Now, This is the Emperor Series rod. Look at that weight. That is the biggest, that's a tungsten weight. That's a 2-ounce tungsten weight. It's a crawl worm. It's called a Psycho Dad by Yamamoto. And I got it on a 4/0 big heavy duty weedless hook. And I got the weight pegged. Now look at that, look at how heavy that thing is. That thing is really big and heavy. Now what I'm doing, okay, and you might live some other place and you might not have heavy weeds that we have here in South Florida, but I'll tell you what you do have. You probably have beavers that cut trees down. That works. So you probably have lily pads, and in the summertime, sometimes the lily pad mats get really thick, and you might have a flood that comes by. Like in central Missouri, for example, in those lakes, a lot of times the floods will come in the spring in April and May, and all the sticks and logs and leaves will all congregate in the coves, and they'll all pack in with the wind and stuff, and it'll just be a thick mat of debris from the flood. Great, great, great place. Flipping, okay. Okay, now what I'm doing here is I'm pitching and flipping. Now this isn't very representative of a deal, but I'm flipping in way heavier cover than these lily pads. These lily pads, this is just representative of what I'm doing. But what I do is I do what I call punch. There's a lot of hyacinths that are just matted. There's a lot of dead reeds and hyacinth cover, and also eelgrass cover. It's all matted up stuff that just the wind has blown it into a spot. It's thick. It's 3 or 4 or 5 inches thick, and that's why you have to have a 2-ounce weight. You have to have a 2-ounce weight to punch through all those roots of, say, the hyacinths, or down through the mat of old dead lily pads and bulrushes. And so that's why the 2-ounce weight. Now, 2 ounces is kind of the extreme. That's about as heavy as I go. I'll go lighter if the cover's lighter. But so often, like in Headwaters, and so often in Okeechobee right now with the big patches of hyacinths, you got to have about 2 ounces to get through it. It's really kind of like hard packed stuff, and it's about a foot thick, but it might be 2 and 3 feet of water underneath the cover. So I'm pitching and flipping. There's kind of 2 ways to do it. One is a flip is where you hold the line and you just pitch out like this, and see, it's a quiet presentation. See, I noticed it hardly made a ripple. See, I'll show you that pitch, that flip, it just barely hit the water. It just barely, there's no big splash. That's why this big heavy weights and stuff, you don't want to make a lot of noise. Now I can go a little farther and actually flip it or pitch it a little farther. Now you make a little bit of sound and a little bit of noise when I go right to that tree. I go right there. See how easy it went in the water? It just went in like real soft and easy. And the quieter the presentation, the more it fools those big fish. Those big 8-pounders are laying there, and they're used to hearing a lot of sloppy casts and other fishermen. So, hey, it takes a sneaky, sneaky approach to catch a big bass. And that's the other thing. They hit it because you're landing right on top of them. They're in there underneath this stuff, and they want that horizontal cover because they don't have eyelids. You know, bass, they got to get underneath stuff in a bright sunny day like today, and that's the best time to flip and pitch. And that's the bright sunny day because they can't close their eyes like we can. They got to get underneath horizontal cover in the form of a matted up thing like I'm talking about. So that's the way so many tournaments are won like right now at Lake Okeechobee. Okay, what are the best places to fish in South Florida? You know, everybody asks me what's my favorite lake. Of course, Okeechobee has been my favorite lake forever and ever. But this year it's not maybe as good as it was last year. It's still a great lake, and I still fish it a lot, but there's some other great choices in the area. Let's talk about another area. Let's talk about going south of Lake Okeechobee, and let's talk about going into the Everglades and talk about the A1 unit. The A1 unit's a 17,500 acre big diked off area where they're taking affluent water from Lake Okeechobee and trying to cleanse it by letting it sit and settle in this big 17,000 acre weed-filled, hyacinth-packed. It has rock pits in it, it has canals in it, it has hyacinths in it, it has every kind of grass. You can hyacinths and hydrilla and eelgrass all over the place. Anyway, it's got a lot of cover. And then you can flip it, you can use the swim baits, you can use the frogs, you can use the Cincos, all that works at A1. But there's one problem with A1. This is a big bass boat. It's a big $70,000 bass boat. It's on a nice trailer. Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful boat. You can't use that. At A1, you have to use either a canoe or a little John boat, and it has to be car topped. You can't even use a trailer. And it's only open 3 days a week, so there's some restrictions here. It's probably some of the finest fishing in Florida, but it's very difficult because it's only open Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And the other problem is that you got to carry the boat all over the levee, and there's no kind of really launching facility. There's a kind of little launch ramps, but you still got to carry the boat from the car back down to the water. And it's just a big pain in the neck. You can use a trolling motor, but if you want to catch some really good quality bass and you want to shot an 8-pound fish, A1 is one of those places that I guarantee you got a shot on each and every cast. Okay, let's talk about another spot. Okay, let's go north a little bit. Of course, we talk about Okeechobee all the time, and we know how good Okeechobee is. But here on my computer, I have some stuff right here. It's hard to see it. I don't know if you can see it. That's not going to work. Well, okay, folks. I was going to show you the computer. Well, there's an area, and you might have heard about it. I can't show it to you on the screen. It's not showing up. Too much sun, too bright. But anyway, around the Stick Marsh. It's around the Vero Beach area. Now, the Stick Marsh is a big thing. It's the St. Johns River Marsh. And there's not only the Stick Marsh, there's Farm 13, and that's another 6,000 or 7,000 acres. There's Garcia, that's 5,000 acres. And there's the new fabled Headwaters Lake. Headwaters Lake is a gem of a place to fish. It's 10,000 acres, and it's right next, it borders the Stick Marsh. And Stick Marsh is about 6,000 acres, but this is 10,000 acres, all full of lilies, it's all full of hyacinths, it's all full of hydrilla. It has trees, it has an enhanced area, it has dugout places. It's an old irrigation setup with an old field, but then they've gone in and dug all sorts of pits in there. There's about 15 big gravel pits. It's just the finest place to fish right now in Florida. Okay. In addition to the Headwaters Pond, and the Headwaters Pond, all the lures that I've talked about are the exact lures that I use in the Headwaters Pond. Totally. I'm not using anything else. There's other lakes around the area in the St. Johns Marsh. For example, just north of that whole big facility, there's 3 or 4 other places. Well, one is Kenansville. Okay, that's kind of on the western side. You got to kind of drive around the state, but that's a 6,000 acre lake. It's full of big bass. I just went there the other day and I had 3 bass over 7 pounds, had one of them over 8. Okay, so that's the kind of lake it is. And it's a really great lake, full of hydrilla, full of hyacinths, plenty of ditches, plenty of bass. Okay, that's Kenansville. Another place is called Three Forks. Now, Three Forks is again north of the Stick Marsh, and you got to get through it through Palm Bay, and you can use a big boat. But the waters are a little low, and you have a little kind of tricky going in there. Now, there's another lake that's even better, and I'm going to go to it tomorrow. It's called Broadmoor. It's a Broadmoor system. And it's about a 4,000 acre reservoir, but it's only open 1 day a week, and you can only use a 40 horsepower motor. But I got one. I got that Bass Tracker Heritage. You see me use that Bass Tracker Heritage from time to time. It's just really a special little boat. It works just perfect. But anyway, that Heritage is a perfect boat for that Broadmoor, and also there's a place right next to it called Goodwin. Anyway, that's just part of it. There's still 2 or 3 more areas around the St. Johns River Marsh area that the state controls and owns. Some of them are catch and release, and some of them you can keep the fish. You just have to check the local regulations, and you have to check the regulations for each of those areas because they're all different. All the regulations are. But they're just dynamite places to fish right now. Along with Okeechobee and along with Lake Kissimmee, South Florida is definitely the bass capital of the world. If you want to catch an 8-pound bass, hey, take up some of these lures I'm talking about. Visit some of these places I'm saying to fish. Hey, with a little luck and a little perseverance, you'll catch yourself an 8-pound bass, I guarantee. Hey, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hit that likes button. We'll see you again soon.